Hey, here we are at Transaction Review and Calculator Practice. I hope, can you guys hear me okay? Those of you that can speak, let me see if I can unmute everyone here just to see. I love it if we can actually talk. That's a little loud. Paul, can you speak? Do you have your mic on?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. That's great. Okay, Kathy can hear me. Well, sometimes it's frustrating. So we're gonna have to keep using the chat button for those of you that are relatively new. A great welcome to Kathy. You've been with me a long time. Ken, you've been with me a long time. Dimitri's fairly new. We've got two brand new people that are tapping in, Paul Virgin and Gloria Woodley. So a warm welcome to you. So if you have questions, comments, or things like that, at the end, I'm going to try to unmute again, but please just use the chat button. So anyway, this is one of my favorite times of the month and that we do here. And as always, I mainly like to just use deals that I'm coming across or doing or whatever, working on, that it's very relevant. And so I hope you guys like that. And just as an FYI, if you guys ever have transactions or situations that you would like to see covered, and so you can have the whole group sort of powwow about it, just please email me, a couple days in advance of the transaction review and calculator, which is usually the first Thursday of every month. So anyhow, getting to it. So here's a gal who, she didn't want to pay for a custom seller financing scenario. She just says, hey, I've got this single family residence in Colorado. She made a private loan on it at some point in the past for $400,000. It defaulted. She had to take it back in foreclosure, so she's turning it back around. She had it on a sales price for I'm not sure how many months of $550, and she says, I've got someone willing to buy it at $550. They're willing to put $100,000 down. I'm just wondering, what can you buy the note for? And I go, well, how much are the payments gonna be each month? And she goes, well, that's none of your business. So I said, there's only so much I can do if you don't really tell me what I'm buying. It's kind of like saying, hey, do you want to buy my car? And then she won't tell me, how old it is, how many miles on it, that kind of thing. So I did the best I could to just say, here's the overarching things. She said, this is first what she said. I've already agreed to carry at a $350 first and a $100,000 second, right? So $550 minus $100,000 leaves $450. She'll carry a second for $100,000, and she wants to sell the first of $350. I guess they have a parent going into a rest home, and they need as much cash as they can get up front out of this deal. And I said, if I create this at 6%, and 360, and of course then she wouldn't tell me if the hundred's a silent second or if she's going to be charging money here, because I was saying, there's all sorts of things that we can do to customize something to exactly what the buyer can afford and to maximize the present value of whatever you're doing. But she was just like, just tell me what you'll buy the note for. So I couldn't spend a ton of time doing it. Actually, I've spent more time now just because I wanted to use it as a deal for just tonight and to get your thoughts on it if you guys think of other things that I could have done. But so let's just recreate this note. So I'm going to clear all. So 350 is the note that she's saying, this is what I've agreed to with the seller, which I don't think she did. She was just sort of randomly pulling that out. So then I solve for the payment here. Okay, so it would be a payment of $2,098. And she said it's going to be fully amortizing. That's what the buyers want. I go, okay, but that's not exactly, going to help you. So if I was being uber conservative, you guys know that the first thing I do is figure out my maximum investment to value. And this is a hefty chunk of change, right? So I'm actually going to assume that if she got a 550 price with owner carry, I'm guessing the cash value, I'm going to be conservative and say, it's probably about 500,000. So I'm going to base my most conservative numbers off of this. So 500,000, 60% of that, so times 0.6 equals 300,000. So I already know no matter what my yield is, I'm not going to pay risk more than 300,000 against this particular deal. And so now my desired yield, if I just say 14, because that's that's a long time to hang out. Statistically, it'll pay off earlier than that because they'll refi or sell the property. But if I had to hang out for 30 years, this is a very reasonable number. So I'm going to put in 14% here. And now I'm going to solve for present value. So now I'll only pay... See those 30-year notes, the time value of money and inflation just really eats up the value of those future payments. So basically this is telling me that, $2,000, it's, what is this, 50 cents on the dollar basically, right? 51%. If you take this amount and divide by 350, you get 51%. So I'm basically 30-year note, 6%, 50 cents on the dollar if you're just calculating for yield. It's saying that this $2,000 is only going to buy $1,000 worth of stuff, by the time I'm getting these, way out there 20, 30 years from now. So anyway, so what does that look like? She would get the 100,000 down. If she sold it just the way she told me that she had already decided to do it, 177, she'd have that $100,000 second, which I don't know if she would be receiving payments or if it's just like a balloon or something. She wouldn't really tell me. So 377. So that's a pretty big discount on a property she's selling for 550. And she goes, well, then what can I do next? I said, there's a variety of things that we can do. If you'll pay a consulting fee, I'll spend, we'll work this over. Usually takes 2 to 3 hours to kind of crunch everything around, and I'll give it back to you at the time that I buy the note. Well, she just was totally offended by that idea, so there wasn't much I could help her but say, look, you're a mom and pop kind of seller, so if you want to put in a balloon, even though this is a private, it's the primary residence of these buyers, you will be excluded. You won't, under Dodd-Frank, you won't be considered a mortgage loan originator, and you're allowed to put in a balloon. And you actually are, I think, technically relieved from the strictness of verifying their income and ability to pay on that. So she goes, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to put in a balloon and all these things. So just kind of the real life things of, what happened to that? All right. So she goes, okay, I said, really, a note that pays more, we'll get more. But she was really offended at me asking any questions. So obviously I didn't spend a whole lot of time on this until tonight. But the people that won't put up a few $100 to save thousands of dollars and don't value my time, I just figure what they're going to do is work me over, then probably do something different. That's happened so many times where they'll go sell the note to somebody else after I've helped them work it up. And I guess after 2 or 3 years, I got tired of working for free. So if somebody doesn't value my time and expertise enough to just do that, it's usually not a good sign. So anyway, just FYI for those of you who are in similar spaces in the business. But okay, so then here's a different note. She came back and said, well, what if I do this? What will you pay? So if I bump the interest rate up to 8%, and she wants to amortize it over 360, same. Now we solve for the payment. and it's a little bit higher, and this time she's going to put a balloon in, due in 5 years. So 5 times 12 is 60 payments. So 60 payments goes in here, and let's solve for future value. That will be the balloon that's due at that time. Okay, so now let's see what we could do. I still have my max ITV. This is my most conservative for like a first trust deed. So now let's plug in 14% that I want and see how much I can pay. Wow, $100,000 more. That makes a big difference, doesn't it? The ability to put in that balloon. That's why a lot of people with the Dodd-Frank, people who are offering owner financing as a routine method of exit are really hampered with their present value of their notes when they can't put in balloons. So this is impressive, right? More money sooner. We've got a higher monthly payment than her first iteration. Also, technically, theoretically, in 5 years, we'll get a lump sum payment of $332. So, you can see that that's 79% of the unpaid balance instead of our last one was 51%. So her total with all things combined would be 476. See, that's only minus 550. She's only losing 75,000 to take an owner carry offer at her asking price and selling out this first here at that price. Okay, and then she came back again, and I don't know. I think it sort of broke down at that point, but here's just for, I think, this tonight, I was thinking, what if she made it in a 3-year balloon? Let's see how that would have changed everything. We went from 177 for 30-year amortization to 276, same yield. If we could put in a 5-year balloon, I wonder how it would change if we put in a 3-year balloon. So now I got to recreate the original note. 8%. The original note based on a 360 amortization. I got to make that to 0 to make sure I get the right payment amount here. Okay, I get that payment inside the calculator. And then I'll put a 3-year balloon. So 3 years times 12 months each is 36 payments. I'll put that in here. Calculate for future value. So now we got 340, right? So Ken, let me see what you said. Yeah, partial purchase, that would have been, I actually wanted to do a partial purchase, but she was insisting on a full because she was going to carry 100,000 in the into the form of the second, and she's needing to squeeze as much money at closing out of this deal as she can for her family members. So she really wasn't interested in a partial. I love partials. Or she could have made a smaller first and carried a larger second, and her overall discount would have been different. But yeah, great concept. Partials are my favorite. I always try to explore that if I can. Okay, so now let's, here's the potential deal if she would have done this. And who knows, she wouldn't even tell me what the buyer could afford. So I don't know if they can afford a $2,500 a month payment or if they can afford a $3,500 a month payment. I have no idea. If they could afford a lot more, then we could shorten the amortization, get this up, whatever. So my desired yield 14. Now solve for present value again. Wow, that jumped it up, another $23,000. So basically 300,000, I can pay 86 and went from 51 to 79 to 86% of the UPB, unpaid principal balance. So what she would walk away with at closing is 400,000 with the down payment and the sale of the first. She'd keep a $100,000 note. I don't know what the terms on that would be, but in total, she's getting pretty dang close, right? Only $50,000 less than than the contract price. So it's not a bad deal, but my guess is she is like, well, I'm guessing she might have had a cash offer previous to this buyer that she probably snubbed. Maybe they offered her 500,000, you know. So then she's going, wait, if I'm only going to net 500,000 anyway, I'd rather take the all cash because then I don't have to wait, for this balloon to pay off. I can get 500,000 now instead of 400,000 now and 100,000 later at some point. So I was going, I wonder what else I might, be able to do. So, oops. All right, so going back to this same deal, this is the one we had already in. So I'm just going to assume that, let's just pretend that 25, this amount here, 25, is about, plus taxes and insurance let's pretend that's like 40% debt to income, and that's pretty much all that they can safely afford. I would have her carry this. I'm going to assume that this 100, I'm going to assume 0% interest and 0 payments due in 36 months. So I didn't even, now the numbers would be, really different if I assume some interest or some payments, but for the purposes of this exercise, I decided not to. So I'm wondering, how can I get her more cash now and still, feel good about this deal? So for the purposes of this, I just go, okay, just for kicks and giggles, if I assume the property really is worth 550, and I was a little more generous at 65%, like a hard money lender would be, what would my maximum ITV investment to value be then? If I was making a loan, it would be loan to value, so times 0.65, and I came up, well, technically if I was, getting a range of underwriting, I might be willing to put as much as 357 against this property. So we already decided I could give her 300,000 for the first, and then what if I could give her 20,000, get her an extra 20,000? This is just an exercise in what works best for her. And so what if I could get her, let's create this note. Okay, it's a $100,000 note, but let's put it here in future value as a balloon. Okay, and in the meantime, 0 payments. I'm assuming 0 payments, 0 interest, with all their income going to paying off the first. For this, heck, at a second, I'm just going to plug in something a lot bigger. Oops. Okay, 20, I think that was my next slide. Okay, if I say I can give her another 20,000, how much of that balloon will I need? If I put 20,000 in now as a partial of that balloon, I want a 20% yield because I'm in second position on a unseasoned note. Okay, I'm going to need, I rounded up to 36.5 of the second. So if I put in 20,000 now, and I won't get anything in the meantime, but I will get when this balloon pays off, if it pays off as agreed, or sooner, right? Could pay off in a year. Maybe they'll refinance and pay it off. But I'd get 36. So here's another deal. I could say I'll give you 20,000 for 36.5 of the second. You get the 100 down, 300 from the first. I'll buy 20,000 partial. So you get 420. We've bumped up by $20,000 what she can get at closing, and she keeps 63.5 of the balloon, right? Which is 100,000 balloon less the part that I'm going to take. And her total is 483.5. So she loses a little bit by giving up a partial of that balloon. But, if every dollar counts to her in the very beginning, maybe it's worth it. So, and then I thought, well, let me just do one other thing. Okay. For the max, we already said this part. What if I just buy out that balloon at 50,000? So I'm going to keep the balloon. I'm going to get her 50 cents on the dollar for that balloon. Oops. Dang it. Okay. 100,000. Put that as a negative number for future value. And I'll get that 36 months from now. and hoping they sell or refinance, right? Or have paid me off in the meantime. I'm going to assume 0 payments. And so if I pay 50 cents on the dollar, what would I get? Okay, that would be a 23% yield. Technically, between the 300 and the 50, I've still skated under, my upper limit of underwriting with my combined investment to value below 357. So now she can walk away with 450, right? Maybe she has a cash buyer that offered her 475. I have no idea. But really, for present value, all I can get her stretching is this. And frankly, this money I wouldn't risk other investors with. This would be something I would do with my own funds, because this is obviously a more risky position than the first, right? But it's a lot less money. The upside's good. And what I would do if it were me, if I actually did execute on that, I would immediately, after I bought the note, offer the payers a $25,000 discount if they'll pay off that second within 6 months. If they can find some extra cash, they can buy off of me for $75,000 that $100,000 note, and they save $25,000, and I make a quick $25,000 on my $50,000. Plus, then that gets me out of a risky situation, and I'm happy with that, right? Who wouldn't be happy with that? Put out 50, get back 75, and all that's left is this. And then that, in effect, adds a lot more protective equity, even protecting the first even more, because now they've got more skin in the game. They got their 100,000 they put as a down payment. Now, if they put 75,000 down to pay off their second, these people are committed. And so anyway, that would be kind of, if you guys think of other things too, interesting. So what could I do? So if she comes back and she, really, really wants to do this, for that first, this is what unless I needed to make some cash, I don't know, at this number, I can't really flip it, because unless I was selling to a super savvy investor who is happy with a higher investment to value. But to me, this is the max anyone should risk against it. So I'm not going to take any money out front on this deal. And because it's a larger amount, so I'm going to put in, a 10%, which it could be higher than that. So let's say I bring in an investor to say, look, I've got under contract to buy at 300,000. And I'm going to pay you 10% yield. And remember what that balloon was? Do we remember? Oh, the balloon on that was 340, 480. Okay, so I'll sell them 36 payments. Let's just see what that would be. I can't remember how I did this actually. I back up with this number here, this arrow. If I left in that of them getting the whole balloon, how does that work? So how many payments? Wow, okay, so if I say you're going to put in 300 now, but you're going to get a 340 balloon, I could do it that way, right? I could give away the whole balloon, and my piece would be to take the difference between, so basically like $1,000 a month would be my part in this. And so they'd be in at, getting 36 of these and one of these at the end of 3 years. Or if it paid off early, wouldn't that be great? If it paid off early, what's the yield on that? Even a year early. So that jumps up to 12. What if they refinanced in 1 year? And of course the feature value would shift, so this is not quite right. Look at that. If they really refinanced in 1 year, that investor who I just promised them the 10% actually would get an 18% yield. So that's sort of a range. 10% guaranteed, stretched up to maybe an 18+% yield. Ken is saying, offer her your service to decide what's best for her, and if you buy the note, you don't charge her, and if you don't buy the note, you get your consulting fee. Yeah, well, that was my whole supposition to her, and she she didn't want to do it. Her exact words were, "You're insulting my intelligence." So I'm like, okay. She wasn't understanding, some of the basic concepts, so she thought I was, running her around or something like that. But if I don't, well, yeah, I wasn't going to charge. You're saying, bill her later. Chances of me getting that payment after the fact is pretty much nil. The value of services the perceived value of services tends to diminish rapidly after they've been provided. Yeah, I did. I said, look, I'm only going to charge you $4.95 up front, and frankly, you should have your buyers come up with the money. They should be paying for this if they're the ones, that want it. And she just wouldn't have any of that. And I said, look, it'll come back to you when I buy the note or any portion thereof. And she just didn't think that was worth it. So the best I could do is give her general guidelines or take what she would throw at me and tell her what I could do with it. Because really, when you're creating a super custom transaction for someone and you're reverse engineering the numbers and consulting with the buyers to see, exactly where they're at, what could they do, how can we leverage the first and the second, to maximize present value. But that does take time. You can see just in doing these simple things, like I'm constantly going back over numbers and things like that. But most people actually think it's worth it because it's a very modified fee. Have her call you later after she deals. Yeah, have her call you later after she deals with all the sharks out there so you don't waste your time. Exactly. I just kind of had to walk away from that and just say, well, I'm going to let her stir about for a bit. Maybe if she calls another company, they will give her, a very generic sort of numbers, but they're not going to sit around and do a total custom deal like what we can do as smaller entrepreneurs. So anyway, where was I? Okay, so if I brought in someone and said, you're going to get 300, but really look what's happened here. Now this investor, even though they could be doing really well if there's an early payoff, right? To me, this is getting the investor to be up to their interests are now above what I would like to see them. That's getting closer to that 65%. And I'm trying to keep them super safe. So I'm going, okay, let's do this. How about they will just stay in their maximum exposure. If it goes out 3 years, it's just going to be 320. So let's go back to 36 here. And I said 10 here. If I say Mr. Investor Partner, Joint Venture Partner, 300,000, you get 320 of the balloons. That's not going too much negative amortization. How much of that payment do you need? Okay, now so they get 36 payments at 2,000, and at the end of at the balloon 320. And then my part of it, I didn't take any money out front. So what I would get is 546, the difference between the payment coming in plus the payment I would owe my investor. And then theoretically, all things going well, the 340 balloon minus the 320 to the investor, and I have a nice upside here of $20,000, 540 a month plus 20,000 if everything goes as expected. Or if I wanted to say, I'm just not going to let my investor have any negative amortization at all because I never want their amount exposed to ever go past 300,000. So I would say, okay, they're going to put $300,000 in, and they're going to get $300,000 out. And so what will they need then each month? Okay, great, $2,500. That monthly payment covers that. So at any time, the amount due them does not exceed what I consider to be the uber safe investment to value on this particular deal. So that doesn't leave a lot for me on a monthly basis. Nothing up front, $68 a month. But if everything goes well, then I'll have $40,000 at the end of it. And in the meantime, I've protected my investor to the best of my ability on that deal. Like, I don't get paid till this thing, really works out. And if it paid off sooner, let's do this again. 18 months. What if it paid off in half the time? My investors yield. That it only goes up. This must be an interest only. I'm wrong. I'm wrong about that. That's the nice thing is if they're invested to 320. Let me just see how that. If they have a little bit, like I think it's gonna jump the yield up. Hold on a second. 20, 21.32. If I do with this deal, they put in 300, they get 2,021 a month, and 320 when it pays off. If it pays off in 18, yeah, okay, that's where it starts going up. If they, have some sort of, so it could be worth it, right? They could be say, hey, I'll take the risk with you because my yield gets bumped if there's an early payoff, 12 months. Yeah, see that? So it's a risk reward thing, right? So you can just see you can play with these depending on the situation, what you need, what your investor needs, what they're comfortable with, that kind of a thing. And then if I ended up buying that second with my own funds, then that's where potentially I could make offering, if they paid off early, I could make some money offering them a discount to pay that second off early, put that in my pocket, not need a lot of money out of this deal, or I just wait for it, just wait for it, just sit on it. I mean, if that second actually had some interest, let's just for kicks and giggles, if that $100,000 didn't have any payments, because I don't want to overwhelm, their pocketbook, right? Their monthly. I want them to set them up for success. No payments, but what if there was, oops, I'm doing this wrong. $100,000. Okay, this is the note. No payments. What if we had 8% on that as well? That's pretty, for a second, that's pretty reasonable. And 36 months, 3-year balloon. Okay, what would the balloon be at that point? So basically this is like a straight note, no payments, but it's accruing interest at 8%. So at that point, they'd owe 127 at the end of that, right? So if I just paid the 50,000, we know that if it was zero interest, I would make about 23%, all things going correctly. But if it actually had some interest, then my yield, paying 50,000 for that, could be as high as 31. So, there's a ton of ways to do this. So I don't know. I hope that was helpful. Thank you, Ken, and for your ideas and thoughts. Now, so any comments? You guys want to ask questions or what's going on? Anyone want to say anything? Say hello.
Hi Don, this is Ken.
Hey, Ken. How you doing?
Well, good. How you doing? How's everything going there in
Hey.
the Reno area?
Oh man, it's beautiful. The fall colors are just blowing me away. And it's getting colder, like I'm not used to these 30 degrees at night sort of things. So
Yeah.
it's something to get used to. The garden's not so happy anymore.
Are
The
you
little,
guys looking to buy the place that you're in, or are you looking to buy another place down the road?
yeah, actually, when I got back from that 2-week trip over to Europe with some of my professional friends, they suggested that I start that conversation rolling. So that's what I did. When I got home, I went over to the garden center. They run the business over there, and just hung out with them a while and said, "Hey, I'd really like to kind of pick up the conversation and just kind of see, what you'd be willing to do. We love the house, we love the yard, we love the area, the location in the city." And they're like, "Oh, okay." But in the past, when I saw him before, ran into in the street, I said, "I'd really like you to carry, because even if I could go to a bank and get a loan, I really don't want to." And he goes, "So was that just last Sunday? I want to say it was just last Sunday." And he goes, "I really don't want to carry." And I go, "Oh, okay. Do you mind me asking, what would you do with the money? If I gave you all cash for the property, what would you do?" He goes, "Well, I'd pay off the mortgage on my other house. And I said, well, how much is that? He said, well, it's about 215 or so. And I go, well, so you've been out of this property now for 4 years. So that means you no longer can take a homeowner's exclusion. So you're actually going to have a big capital gains tax when you sell this. So if I gave you all cash, you're going to be writing a pretty big check, because he bought the property back in, I don't know, I can't remember for how much, but he bought it back in like 1982 or 1983. So he goes, oh yeah. So I said, why would you want to, to write a big check? Wouldn't you rather keep your money working for you? And so if you and your wife can just go, be thinking. I said, also, how would it benefit your tax situation if you could continue to depreciate the property? Maybe we'll structure this as a lease option so that you can continue to depreciate. You can improve your cash flow. You can. Do you guys know if he takes an option fee, does he have to declare that as income in the year he receives it, or does that go against the total price of the property when it's sold? Like, say if we agreed on a purchase price of $250 and I gave him, what if I gave him $50,000, or $40,000, whatever?
I think that would have to be declared in the year that he receives it.
Yeah, but the thing is, if I end up, what if that is applied toward the, wow, something got messy. What if that's applied toward the purchase price eventually? So that would really be more of a capital gain, whereas if he takes it in that year, won't it be ordinary income, that $50,000, but it should really have been all said and done?
If you get to that point, then you need a CPA to tell you what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, so that's what I told him, to figure that out, to figure out what those tax consequences were. I gave him my best idea of how it might be working, but that he needed to just figure that out, because he might come back and go, oh my God, we would come out so much better to do this as a lease option and extend terms to you than taking all cash like I thought. So anyway, that's in the works. So I started the conversation. So they're very busy through the end of the year, so it may be till January before we actually sit down and hammer it out. But yeah, we're kind of excited. We're excited because we want to put solar on and do some capital improvements. And it's like, we shouldn't do that till we have some sort of controlling interest in the property at some level.
Don, why wouldn't you want to go to an actual bank? Is it a personal thing, or you just don't want to have a bank to do with anything?
Yeah, good question. For me, when you're self-employed, your numbers never look as good.
Okay.
And number two, 5 years ago, I had some things on my credit report, a couple of charge-offs. I had some tangles with credit cards and things like that. So, my life was a bit messy there. So my credit isn't horrible, but it's not, I don't know, what is it, high sixes for 2 more years. For 2 more years. So I said, hey, what are you paying on your mortgage? And he goes, and I knew exactly what his mortgage was because I looked him up in public record. I know he owns this property that we're in, free and clear. I know that he put $400,000 down and got a 225 fully amortized. Well, he told me he's paying 4.65, which is that high for now? Are rates lower than this?
Yes, they are.
What do you think he could get if he refinanced?
If he refinanced, this would be considered a rental home, right?
Yeah, no, this is his primary residence. I'm just trying to figure out what he's paying, and if I made
primary residence.
yeah, if I
You should be able to get probably 4.
4. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying, if I can't pay off his mortgage, so probably he owes, what's it been, 4 years? So by now he owes 209. So let's call it 210. That's his balance right now. And what if I paid him $50,000? That would be, I could pay more, but I'm not sure I want to. Okay, then he'd have 160. If he refinances at 4 for 360, oops, back, 360. Then fully amortized, then his payment would go down to 763. So then maybe he could at least match. I'm just trying to match and make net neutral his mortgage payment so that he doesn't feel the
Mm-hmm.
weight of it and he minimizes the capital gains and other taxes that he would pay. So, then if we put 50, I don't know what we'd agree as a price, but he could even cash flow it, right? He's probably looking for more cash flow. So if I paid 250 for the property, of course we haven't decided even that yet. He hasn't given me a number, but if I paid down $50,000, that's 200,000. If I say, hey, why don't you make the spread? You did the job. I'll pay your 465 what you had before. And so now he's making 250 bucks a month, and I'm getting the benefit of his going to the bank and refinancing. And I'm very happy to
Yeah.
get, and I just don't like banks. I want, wherever I can, I want to get private solutions. And or if he wanted me to
Yeah.
put down more, I could put down more, but I like the idea of having a free and clear personal residence. I don't, it doesn't pencil out when you're doing the calculator, but just the feeling of it, I think would be nice. But
Or you could also do a lease option with them, um, Don, and then down the road, because your credit's going to be better in a
yeah,
few years, have a certain portion of that payment go towards the down payment. If he doesn't want to do this, give him a couple of different
yeah,
options. One being this what you're talking
exactly.
about, and the second one being a lease option. And I would, if I were, what is your lease currently right now? Is it a year or
Uh,
6 months?
yeah, it's through May. It was a year, so it's going by super fast. We're not, it's 4 months in, and we're not even fully unpacked yet. It's like I don't want him to sell the property out from under me next May. We'll just be settling in basically, and we've already painted exactly the interior the way we want it and everything. But
Yeah. Well, I would say if you've got a pretty good
yeah,
rapport with them, I would start going in that direction and helping them out as to because obviously you guys pay on
yeah.
time every month, so you're a good prospect there. And if he's going to do a loan for you, he wants to make sure that you know you you know that you're paying him and stuff. So in May it'll be what about 8 months that you're there, or a year, or how
Yeah,
long
in
is it in May?
May. Wait. Oh, I guess it's June. In June, June 15th. That'll be a year.
Okay. Well, I would definitely work something out. If you like the place, then you need to start working out something on paper as to you either owning it through a
Mm-hmm.
lease option or through a seller carryback. And how much do you think that house is worth right now, conservatively, if someone was to buy it and they had an open house and they put it on the market and you guys weren't living there and they staged it or whatever? What could they bring in?
Uh, let's see, 120 probably per square foot times 2,600.
Oh,
Okay, let's see, 2,600. So maybe in the 300 range, but then here's realtor
Okay.
commission, 18,000. Then here's some
Yeah.
upgrades that they would have to do, and then they would have the property sitting vacant for several months
Yeah.
because that properties in that range are taking 4 to 6 to a year to sell. So let's say that they wouldn't be getting this 1650 times 9 months, so it's going to cost them an extra 14,000. So I'm just saying, hey, as is, no vacancies, no repairs, no realtor commissions. Zillow actually, which we know it's not really all that great, shows it at 256, and I'm happy to take that number. That's basically $100 per square foot. So if we took that and I gave him a 5% option fee, then I only have to come out of pocket 12,800 right now, and I could
What kind of an interest rate? What kind of an interest
basically
rate
I'd
would you
just
pay
be
him?
asking him if I could leverage his existing loan, right? He's paying 465. I would say, hey, how about I wash you? I just make your mortgage feel invisible. So what if I pay you? Remember, he's paying 1160, right? So what if we pay you
Mm-hmm.
that 1160 plus we'll cover all taxes and insurance. So he's putting this toward his mortgage payment. I'm covering. In
Would
this
you
case,
just
it
do a
would be.
wraparound?
I'm talking about a lease option, where if he wanted to continue to depreciate the property, So in that case, my out of pocket would be
Mhm.
about the same. He gets this much guaranteed, not based on if I'm going to call him for repairs or something, taxes, insurance, those things. I would
Mhm.
cover it. So it wouldn't be any more out of our pocket per month. And then I don't know. There's a bajillion different ways, but I'm just trying to go, how would you like? I just didn't know if he would have to claim that option fee as income in the year he receives it, or if it's going toward the eventual strike price, if he saves it and gets to declare it as the whole purchase price, in the year that we transfer title. But I don't know. I kind of never. I was joking, but maybe I'm gonna be serious. I said, hey, you know what? Why don't you be the trustee of my land trust? Because then it will always look like title never transferred. And these people are like, it's funny. We just adore each other, and he's the kind of guy that I would trust. For some reason, I just know that, and he's a prominent businessman in the community. So I might just have him, when we convert it to an owner finance, I might just have him be the trustee of our trust. And I'll never hit public record at
Yeah.
all with my own name, so which is very favorable. So anyway, well, that's
Yeah.
interesting to think about. I don't know what's going to happen, but just sort of trust the universe to take care of whatever's highest and best. And usually I can't guess it, but yeah, I like doing these like what ifs. So, but anyway, well, great. Thank you so much, everyone. It's absolutely delightful to spend this time with you. I hope it's been enlightening, and I wish you all a very wonderful evening. You guys take care. Until next time. All right. Bye bye.